أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Within this short series, we want to discuss the concept of jizya and the rights of non-Muslims who would live in a legitimate Islamic state. We saw that after what the terrorists did in Iraq and Syria, the ones who refer to themselves as Islamic State, after we saw what these thugs did, many questions were raised about particular concepts in the religion of Islam. And many concepts that we have in Islam, some of them may apply today and some of them don't apply today. But what is the importance of this? For example, I remember one of my teachers, he said that when he was in Iran, they were studying the chapter on slavery. And some of the people within the class were saying, what's the point of studying slavery? This doesn't apply now. Slavery is something that Islam abolished. It gradually abolished slavery. It got rid of this practice. So why do we need to study rulings for this, or what the scholars said about this, or what the ahadiths say about this? And of course the importance is clear, because when these things happen, such as, the concept of mulk al-yamin, the women who the right hand possesses, when Daesh claimed to implement this concept in a legitimate way, which of course they didn't, many questions came up from both Muslims and non-Muslims. That in the Quran we find that it says مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ or مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُمْ, that it speaks clearly about these women whose right hand possess, or these women who are possessed, for example, or owned. So what is this concept exactly? And after that, many people realize that, okay, these types of concepts, they do need to be discussed. It's not just about the practical concepts which we can implement today, rather the theoretical concepts, the concepts that don't apply today, the concepts that in fact, or laws that applied before, should be discussed. Because as we know, if Islam is a pure religion and way of life for the whole of humanity, which instills justice within society, then no concept within Islam should go against one's intellect and fitrah, one's intrinsic nature, and all of these concepts have a philosophy behind them. They have, of course, laws behind them, they have wisdom, and many of these laws are for the betterment of the whole of society. So that's why we will discuss this concept of jizya, and we will discuss in this short series the rights of non-Muslims. Was Islam and is Islam a religion that gives rights only to Muslims, or does it give rights to non-Muslims? And if non-Muslims were living in a legitimate Islamic state, which we do not find today, of course, what types of rights and privileges would they have? And would they be protected by the Muslims? And would they be treated fairly? So what we want to do, inshallah ta'ala, is of course start by defining jizya and go into the Quran and the ahadith to see how the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam dealt with non-Muslims within their time. And let us look at some of the examples, inshallah ta'ala. So before we go on to it, what I want to discuss is give a background of some of the questions which we will delve into. Because the problem that I've witnessed myself is that within the English language, many of these concepts are not discussed. Now, dear brothers and sisters, we are not going for muqaran approach. We are not going for an approach where we will look into the books of the mukhalifin and compare their books with ours in regards to this concept. Because within the Shia school of thought, within the Shia madhab and the sect of the mukhalifin, there are actually differences which are discussed about these concepts. There will be Shi'as who discuss with each other about these concepts and have a difference of opinion, and the same with their sect, they discuss with each other and have a difference of opinion. So we are not going for a comparative approach in this, rather we are looking at some of the Shia books, the hadith as mentioned, and the exegesis. So question 1, we want to ask, what is jizya? Is this a type of unjust extortion money which oppresses non-Muslims? Or is this something that is in their favour? And is this something that is fair to them? Secondly, is this discrimination? Why is there a separate type of tax or monetary amount which is allocated towards non-Muslims? Is this discrimination against them? Many people try to argue that this is type of discrimination, the non-Muslims. They bring up these doubts. They say this is unjust against non-Muslims. If I was living in a legitimate Islamic state under Muslims, I would never pay jizya. So that's one of the questions. Third, who is it taken from? Is the concept of jizya something that applies to men, women, children, old men? Or is there a specific category of people that Islam says that jizya must be taken from? This is something that we'll go into, and we'll look into the hadith of the Imams, peace be upon them, on this issue. The amount of jizya taken. So is the amount taken a fixed amount, or can it vary depending upon what the Imam sees as fit? Question 5, are there benefits to those who pay this? Because as we know, in some countries when you pay the tax, you get benefits due to this, in the sense that you may have free healthcare, you may have free dentist care, and you may have other services, public services, which benefit the society and benefit yourself due to your contribution of taxes. We go to another question, does jizya only apply to Ahlul Kitab? Now this is a controversial topic which is discussed amongst Shia, and it is also discussed amongst those who refer to themselves as Ahlul Sunnah, namely whether the concept of jizya can only be taken from the Christians, the Jews, the Zoroastrians, and in some opinions by our scholars, the Sabians. And if it is not allowed to be taken from those who are not from Ahlul Kitab, the people of the book, as I mentioned, then what is the ruling for those non-Ahlul Kitab people? Does Islam say that only killing or their conversion is accepted? So these people who are not Ahlul Kitab, they have only the option of becoming Muslim or dying and being fought against. This is an issue which we want to touch upon, because within the English language I have not seen anyone discuss this issue. So inshallah ta'ala we will of course elaborate on this issue. And then the verse of jizya. So how many times is jizya found in the Holy Quran? Is the jizya found in the Holy Quran numerous times? Is it only found once? And in what context is jizya found in the Holy Quran? And what does it say? For example, we have the famous verse which says حَتَّى يُعْطُوا الْجِزْيَةَ عَنْ يَدٍ وَهُمْ صَاغِرُونَ. So this verse of course is used by the anti-Islamic polemicists to say that what Allah says in the Quran, your God says that the Ahlul Kitab, the people of the book, they have to give jizya whilst they are mocked, or whilst they are in a humiliated state. So this goes to show the religion of Islam's discrimination against the non-Muslims for making them pay this type of tax while they are saghirun. So what is the meaning of saghir in, for example, this verse? We will discuss all of these things. So inshallah ta'ala, if you stay with the series and if you watch the series, we will cover all of them. Now what we need to know about this tax of jizya is that it's not applied anywhere today. There is no current Muslim country taking jizya from non-Muslims. Now as I mentioned, Daesh tried to apply and implement their distorted understanding of Islamic law. And what we can say is that one cannot just apply these types of rules and say, I'm going to go take somewhere over and I'm going to start saying, oh, these people have to pay jizya. No. These matters are up to the jurists, up to the specialists. No Tom, Dick and Harry can come and say, I'm going to implement this law and I'm going to force people to give me jizya or this type of money, and they go by their own understanding. And what Daesh did is equivalent, or is the same to what some Salafi prison thugs have done. I remember I read in the news that in UK prisons, non-Muslim inmates were being forced to give money, so-called jizya, which is not of course jizya, and if they did not give this money, they would be beaten up by inmates. So in some news outlets, they describe this as non-Muslim inmates are being forced to give protection money, Islamic protection money. And wallah, this is hilarious. Well, not hilarious, I may say, but this is funny that these people, and shocking that some random prison inmates think that they can implement the concept of jizya, or what their understanding is, because of course what they are implementing is not the concept of jizya, as we'll explain. So it is not for any random person, whether it be anywhere in the world or in a prison, to say that, oh, I'm going to force this person to give me money, and they call it jizya under the name of jizya. No, this is of course prison type of politics and gangs within prison that do these types of actions, which are nothing to do with Islam. So these types of news reports, when people see this, they say that, oh, there you go, this is Islam. These are Muslim inmates, and they're forcing these non-Muslim inmates to give a type of money, otherwise they'll be beaten up. So it gives a bad image, and then people start asking, okay, what is this concept of jizya? And then we find after that that some Shia scholars, they say that jizya cannot be applied in the time of the occultation of the Imam. And then we have other Shia scholars that they discuss the topic of implementing an Islamic state in the time of the Imam, in the time of his occultation, under Shura al-Fuqaha. Some of the scholars have this opinion, and some of them may say that yes, jizya actually can be applied if a legitimate and just Islamic state was implemented, not a terrorist Islamic state like Daesh did, which wasn't an Islamic state. It was a bunch of Salafi thugs that went around killing people, and they had no right to do this. So this is, again, it doesn't apply today, but as I mentioned, if Islam is a complete just way of life for all of humanity that considers the rights of Muslims and non-Muslims, if this is the case, then we need to discuss these concepts which are not applied today, whether it be concepts relating to slavery, non-Muslims, whether it be relating to Islamic ethics, or let's say ways of conducting war. All of these should be discussed as the questions come up, especially after terrorists do actions and they name these as Islamic concepts. So we want to understand how a genuine Islamic state would be. We'll look at some aspects inshallah ta'ala, and of course the topic of jizya. Now, what is jizya? This is the question that will come up. We can say that this is a tax specifically for non-Muslims, and it is a type of agreement between the non-Muslims and the Muslim government within a legitimate Islamic state. And what does this do? This necessitates their protection, and it shows that they are willing to live peacefully with the Muslims. This is what we can say the type of jizya is. Or if we don't say tax, we can say a type of money. And as we know, when we live in a country, there are laws and there are particular rules, and people make certain contributions. But let's say if we live in America or we live in the UK, they say these are Christian countries, but we know they are mixed and they have a secular type of law, although there still remains traces of Islamic laws. So when non-Muslims, they agree to live in an Islamic state, they pay their contribution, which shows that they want to live and coexist peacefully with the Muslims. It's pretty simple as that. And this person, after paying jizya, he would become a dhimmi. So he would become a protected non-Muslim. And this term again is one that is controversial. That they say that, oh, when non-Muslims pay this type of amount, and this amount of course relates to them being non-Muslims, this is discrimination against them. And inshallah ta'ala, what we will do is we will answer that in the next episode. Because as we know, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he invited the Christians of Najran to the mubahala, to put the curse of Allah upon the liars, they rejected this. They didn't accept this because they knew that they were not on the haqq. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he took the jizya from them in order for them to live peacefully with the Muslims, and they could remain on their batil, they could remain on their falsehood, but they paid this amount. So the jizya, again, we can say is a contribution towards the legitimate Islamic state from the non-Muslims, to show as a sign or symbol of them living peacefully with the Muslims. And we will discuss, when they do pay this amount in an Islamic state, what is it for, and whether it is a discrimination. Why is it that non-Muslims have a specific tax which is allocated towards them? Inshallah ta'ala, if you join us for episode 2, we will answer the other questions surrounding jizya and show some of the ahadith from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. So dear brothers and sisters, please join us for the next episode. May the peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad and his purified progeny. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajahum wa la'ana a'da'ahum.
بالحسن بالحسين بالأئمة الأطهار.